Anyways, I guess we'll wrap up in this part and then go to the last thing. Any thoughts on... I have mixed feelings about the fact that Apple patched and these are both related. You said you haven't really been keeping up with Sun, but we were kind of talking about the Camera Plus stuff before we got into this.
Yes.
It's just one of those I just have to...
Well, like you're saying, they were trying to make a hardware button right off the iPhone in order to take a picture, correct?
Yeah. Why the camera app was open, the volume button would become a camera button, which was what Apple had a problem with.
That's cool, but I think you were telling me that goes against the policy with Apple.
It goes against the U law. It's altering functionality of built-in stuff.
And so then they told that they published the hack in order to overcome it, and now their app's no longer in the App Store.
Well, and that's what's so funny about this, because, if this is a feature Apple's never going to approve and they don't want in the iWorld, then why did they approve the application with this functionality in there in the first place? Because it's like this was code that was in the original application, it just wasn't turned on. It's like, okay, how much other code has Apple missed? And you were saying they're not really looking at the code. Basically, they're just looking at basic.
Well, they look at the code syntax, I think, as anybody else would, but I think they just they test the app. Obviously, they run it, they see if it functions, but they're not going to sit there and get into every nitty gritty feature that's possible on the app. I mean, I can tell you just. There's several apps that I've had and are quite good, whether they, are video games or what have you, that lock up from time to time, freeze up or whatever. So the integrity, of course, is not always checked. I'm sure that they have a rating system for their approval process and which features go on or no go, and I'm sure they test for sensitive ports and things like that if those calls are made. But beyond that,
well, yeah, but see, it's
something in. Heck yeah, it's been done before.
Well, no, and that's the thing. It's like the whole reason for this vetting process from hell is so supposedly stuff isn't getting snuck in. It's a bit okay. I am going to cause myself endless problems this holiday season if anybody recognizes my face. But I'm going to say this: this is the equivalent to airport security. I'm sorry. If I get to the metal detector, it's too late. I've gotten to the metal. It's like, you need to catch me before I get there, son. It's not like that. It's like when the stewardess comes over to me and tells me my suitcase needs to be moved 2 inches to the left because it's sticking out under the seat so that the person behind me has more legroom. It's like, I'm sorry, sir, your case can't be there. It's like it's taking up the legroom underneath my feet. It's like, and we've all had that story. So it's like, lady, it doesn't make a difference. This is your board, and you need to harass somebody. You don't say that to them because, of course, you'll be arrested in the name of national security.
I know. You get a little bit of resistance to TSA, it's all over. It's going down. You're missing your flight.
If you're lucky, that's all that happens to you. Technically, they could arrest you and detain you for a year. It's like if they wanted to be an ass.
I know Apple's caught quite a few apps that had malicious stuff in it. And I think they're mainly testing for ports and calls, looking at that syntax, but it's not perfect. And that stuff isn't going to trigger flags and tests like that if it's in dormant status. Mm-hmm. Like this was. This feature was initially, it was in the software, but it was in dormant status. Right. Let claim to fame that Android doesn't check their apps. I believe that the Android marketplace very much checks their apps just as well.
The other thing the Android marketplace does is it doesn't discourage the creation of security tools like antivirus, malware scans, and firewalls. Those applications are all there, available and being developed. It's like at the end of the day, and somebody asked me on this. They were concerned about Android because they're like, oh, I've heard of bank stuff getting intercepted and other stuff. I'm like, well, I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah, it's a possibility, but if you approve a media player to have SMS permissions, you kind of deserve what you get. If you're using the Abu Dhabi bank system to access Bank of America, you kind of deserve what you get. It's like it's like a little bit of common sense.
Wasn't that bank hacked before the Android got serious about quality standards in their app store?
Yeah. It's like here's the fundamental difference in philosophy with Android versus iOS. Android's logic is it's your device, so ultimately at the end of the day, you're in the driver's seat. You may have to obey some laws you don't like that are imposed by your carrier or manufacturer, but it's your device. You're in the driver's seat. The laws you accept have to do with whatever environment you choose to live in, but it's on. Apple's philosophy is, no, you're the kindergarten student getting on the bus. They'll take care of everything, and you hope they're not that driver who every day is pulling to the corner with the corner of the bus on the train tracks where inevitably a train is going to come by and smash the bus and kill everybody. It's like you're hoping.
Consumer that says, well, this gives me everything I need, and you become complacent or apathetic to the fact that saying, well, it does enough for me, so I'm happy, is the wrong attitude. But I would say Android speaks more to carriers in principle for what it is than it does to consumers. It essentially is saying a hell of a lot more to carriers and saying, you can do anything you want to me. You can build new UI layers, you can add your little application stuff here, you can insert this here and that, and then it finally gets to the consumer. It's almost that now, except for your favorite phone, which has been discontinued, the Nexus 1.
Yeah.
It's pretty much Android directly to the carriers, then directly to the consumer.
Yeah, which does have me concerned. Although, I would argue that's also going on in iOS, and the reason I say that is...
wait. I'm not saying it is a bad thing to Android. I'm just saying, hey, I'm agreeing with you that I don't like that chain, that logistical chain. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it was better than that. No, my point was it's just kind of disappointing that the carriers have more to say than anything about Android than the consumer does, unless you read it.
Welcome to the way federal regulations set up the U.S.
That's what I'm not talking about it versus. I'm just saying it's just disappointing.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, and this goes back to the thing. Now, it's honestly, this is starting to heat up a little bit. This whole, because it's now that Android's outselling.
I sold the iPhone, right? There's in total numbers more Android now than iPhone.
One thing I'm wondering on that, because right now that is not an apple-to-apples comparison, in that Android's on multiple devices on multiple carriers.
Sure.
And iOS is on 2 devices on 1 carrier. So what would be a fairer test, although I'm not sure Apple wants to do this. At some point they're going to have to. But the moment they do this, this does become an apples-to-apples comparison. Because right now you can claim Android's only outselling iOS because it's on 1 device on 1 carrier.
No, let me stop you there. It is apples-to-apples. And I always say this because Apple chooses to stick with AT&T. Look, that's their design model. And they're going to pay for it. They're going to pay for it. give Apple a break on that. It's their business model. It's their decision. They're in charge of whether they want their iPhone. And if they choose to have one carrier, sorry, you're not going to have the entire market share. You're going to repeat the same mistakes you made where Macs were number one and then went to almost zero from Windows and whoever took over the market. And they're going to fall into the same trap.
Yeah, it's funny the parallels that happened there, because in the old days of the Mac OS, it didn't do multitasking either. It's like it's the exact same thing repeating itself literally.
I mean, it's ridiculous. So yes, it is apples to apples.